Hello everyone, and welcome to 3 Scary Gaming Stories. Number 1. I played a first-person shooter with my best friend's murderer. It would have taken a tornado to tear Simpson away from video games. We had a strict schedule. Every Saturday night at 9, Sim and I met like clockwork on a private voice chatting platform. It was an important tradition, and we kept it going ever since Sim moved to the other side of the country. Our moms both hated the hours, but they knew it was our only shot at staying friends, so we never caught too much shit for it. Sim and I were friends since kindergarten, so we always felt like we never should have been split up in the first place. Plus, it was summer. Neither of us had any plans but sleep, sushi, maybe more games on Sunday, if we didn't catch shit for it. That night, we spent a couple hours on an RPG. We moved on to a first-person shooter that had always been Sim's favorite. There was a mechanism in the game that kept track of how many times a player killed others, and how many times he died. As per usual, Sim and I dominated the leaderboard every time. We were cocky kids, and we let the other randoms know it by talking a metric ton of shit. Sim had no problem telling a kid to kill himself in the chat. Looking back, it was pretty fucked up. Even then, it was a little heavy. I had sarcastically warned him, again and again saying it, but it was a delicate balance. We bonded over those online battles, and it always brought us a bit closer together. So I never wanted to ruin it by sounding like a baby. Some guys and girls took it personal, sure. There were arguments, and cusses, and tirades, and tears. Sim powered through it all. He took a lot of pride in berating and beating down the bitches who thought they could buy this game and beat him. But poor Simmy never had to deal with any bitch quite like this. Sometime after 1, on a cold night, he logged off out of nowhere. A couple seconds later, I got a text.
Power's out.
12:58 a.m.
I should be right back. Looks like my neighbors still have lights.
12:59 a.m. It all happened before. Sim's family house was situated on a faulty grid, and it was prone to surges and seizures throughout the night. Even as a high school kid, Sim had petitioned his local city to fix it. His mom had swelled with pride at that one, even though she knew it was just so Sim could spend more time gaming. 16 minutes later, I got a third text.
Good to go. My microphone is not working though.
1:15 a.m. In seconds, Sim had booted his computer back up and joined my online party. We queued for a game, and played a few more as the hours of the early morning started to wind their way down. Somehow, though, it seemed that with each game, Sim's skills had seriously started to decrease. He was not trash-talking anymore. In fact, he was not saying much of anything. I supplied the background noise by prattling on about strategy and timing via a one-way conversation on the audio chat. I knew his mic was busted, but I still expected to hear something. Anything from him. He was not a quiet kid, especially when he was caffeinated. Around 4, we were starting to lose our game to lack of sleep. I let Sim know that it had to be time for me to log. Without a word, Sim City, as he called himself, signed off. Weird. That was all I was prepared to call it. Weird. There were reasonable explanations for every bit of it. Could have been a lack of sleep or frustration over a bad game. By the time I signed offline and headed to my bed, it was not even a second thought in my mind. I woke up at 7 to the screaming sounds on my phone and my mom. The police sounded so persistent that they almost wanted to come and pick me up themselves. We hustled down to the station house and sat in a waiting room before a portly gentleman who looked ready to split his buttons led us down to his office. Then he spoke seven simple words that were enough to shoot some ice into my veins.
Your friend Simpson was shot last night,
was all he said. After that, he studied me for a long time. My face was full of shock, undoubtedly. Shocked followed by a long wave of fear and sadness. I cried a lot, but then I was ashamed. He continued.
I'm sorry to say he succumbed to his wounds. and his assailant is still at large. There is some evidence on his computer that you two talked last night. That is why our police department was contacted and why you were brought down to the station this morning. We need some answers.
My mom gave me a look. I told the officer everything I knew. Together with the police department and Sim City's on speakerphone, we pieced together the puzzle. Sim's power was cut at exactly 12:56 a.m. But there was no issue with the grid. The way it was done, someone had to cut the electric locally. Foul play, definitely, wheezed the chubby cop's mustache. When the perpetrator was finished, he stepped inside. 2 dirty boot marks were recovered from a welcome mat. After that, the officers ascertained that the perpetrator murdered Sim and every member of his family. The entire thing was probably done with a semi-automatic, maybe with a silencer, but there's no evidence of patience or pause. They were shot like it was an execution. The killer simply walked inside, stepped into every bedroom, and shot 6 or 7 rounds into its occupants. The officers did not think to even step inside the bedrooms to see if they died. They did. At 1:10, power was restored to the property. At 1:13, the computer in the basement was logged into the network. At 1:15, a single text was sent from Sim's phone to mine. The unknown subject left blood-stained fingerprints that are still being scanned. At 4 o'clock, the electric was cut again. The subject presumably then left the property. An hour later, a note was discovered by the neighbor on the front door of the family's front door. It read, in sloppy juvenile handwriting, "Sim City has been wiped out by Player 1. A suspect has never been identified." The DNA and fingerprints did not match a single person in the crime database. Any recent attempts to trace relevant IP addresses have been blocked or rerouted by sophisticated software, and the boot prints the officers found were about as common and useless as any others around. Now, I'm scared to sign in every Saturday at 9 because sometimes I still see SimCity online. Number 2. I agreed to meet my internet friend from an online video game in real life. I'm an avid gamer. I started since 5 years old. Now, for the last 1 year, I enjoy playing a very popular online game on my PC. I won't say its name for precautionary reasons. I wasn't really enjoying playing this game when I made one of the worst mistakes in my entire life. I went over to play a match when I came across a very friendly player. We were having a real good time together, making jokes in the chat, playing together, and helping each other get kills. After we finished the game, he sent me a friend request, and I was like, why not? So I accepted his friend request. If only I hadn't accepted it. From the time I added him, when he saw that I was online, he sent me messages and invites to play with him. And I thought that this dude was really fond of me. We played a lot of games together, having fun, etc. He told me that his name is Jason, and he is 16 years old, just like me, and we had the same interests. We were talking on voice chat very often, and his voice actually sounded like a boy, close to my age, so I was sure he was 16. However, I had never seen any picture of him, and when I asked him the name of his Instagram account to follow him, he claimed that he didn't want to tell me because he found himself ugly, and he was pretty shy. I asked him a lot of times to do video call together, but he said that he didn't want to because he doesn't like video calls. I knew him for about 6 months or something. When he asked me a question, I wish I had never answered. Man, where do you live? I am a sensitive character, and I don't want to give out my information to other people for no reason, so I was very skeptical of whether to answer or not. The only personal thing I had revealed to him was my age and my name. Nothing more. Then a lot of good images passed through my mind of us together playing, having fun, and improving together in the game. So without even thinking it, I told him the place I was living. He answered me instantly.
Really? I live very close to your town. I really want to meet you, so want to make an appointment and meet you somewhere in your town?
I was very happy and confused at the same time. From the one hand, I really wanted to meet him because we had great time together. From the other hand, I was a little bit scared and skeptical because I wasn't sure if he was the guy he told me he is. So I answered him with a, I don't know, I'm gonna think about it and I'll tell you soon. From this, Jason kept asking me if I had decided every single day. I didn't really want to answer him, so I tried to avoid these type of questions. After 2 weeks, he kept asking me as usual, and then I saw he was really willing to meet me so bad, so I told him, okay, but I will decide the place we are going to meet up. He sent me faces like smiley face, etc., and he told me that it was okay for him, no problem at all. At 99%, I was sure he was the guy I think he was, but the other 1% was skeptical. And also the other part, I had second thoughts. So I made an appointment in a crowded place with a lot of people, and close to a police station so I could have access in case he was a murderer or something like that. But I thought he can't be. I went over to this place with fear and happiness at the same time. I checked my clock and I saw the time we was supposed to meet had arrived. I checked around me multiple times to spot Jason, and after 5 minutes I saw a tall boy wearing a hat and a hoodie close to my age. Coming to me, I told myself, oh my god, this is definitely Jason. This boy came to me and greeted me, telling me he is Jason. I was very happy that I had finally met him. I was also relieved. Then he made some weird moves in his hands and tried to beckon me like he wanted to say something to me. He had a very anxious look on his face. I couldn't understand what was wrong with him. His voice started shaking, and after coughing, he told me to follow him because he knew a very good cafeteria somewhere there. I did the mistake and followed Jason. After 2 to 3 minutes of following him, I noticed something on his hoodie, like a microphone or something like that. I questioned myself why Jason had a microphone. I started getting stressed and sweaty. Without realizing, we went to a remote place, far from the crowd, and of course, the police station. Then an old guy popped out of nowhere holding a knife and wearing black clothes. I heard the young boy saying, I
Tried to warn you. I am sorry.
I started screaming so loud and running so fast, and I felt I was going to collapse. This guy started chasing me too, holding his knife, wanted to cut me into freaking pieces. Fortunately, a car driver passing through this remote road saw what happened and instantly called the police. He swerved his car, trying to hit the old man, but the old man avoided the car. I tried to confuse him by changing directions, and after some minutes, the old man lost me. I hid inside a bush. He was trying to find me, holding his knife under his clothes in order to not be recognized as a murderer by any other person around there. I called the police and told them where I was, and they managed to get there. They spotted the old man and encircled him, and as a result, they arrested him. I went straight to the police station to explain what happened. After 1 day, I heard at the news that the guy was arrested was a 51-year-old murderer trying to catfish kids throughout online games by using his young son. The boy pretended to be Jason. The news claimed that he threatened and made his son assist him in his illegal and sick job. If his son refused to assist him, he would kill him. He also put a microphone to his son's shirt in order to hear the conversation within his son and the victim. That's why his son tried to beckon me. He couldn't speak because his father was hearing everything. The murderer was responsible for the death of 18 kids throughout the region and sentenced to lifelong imprisonment, while his son was found innocent and sent to an institution. Number 3. There's something wrong with my VR headset. I remembered rushing home to try out the VR set that I had purchased at an estate sale. Excitement coursing through me. I worked as an antiques dealer in the city and had received notice about the sale a few days ago. I had received a folder of information about the seller, and after looking at a list of the items, the VR headset stood out to me. I paid a cutthroat rate for the cutting-edge tech, and was very happy with myself as I raced home to the small apartment I shared with my girlfriend of 5 years, Vanessa. I usually only sold furniture and vases, that sort of thing, but I had discovered there was a certain type of customer that craved technology, new and old. Some of the biggest sales I had made were from clients purchasing old Betamax players and record players, very niche and very expensive items today. There is always a market of buyers looking into nostalgic technology like that. And I know that if I could find a way to make a profit on something so new like the headset, that I could simply just enjoy it myself, as one of my biggest hobbies was video gaming. I got home and realized Vanessa hadn't gotten back home from her job yet. She had recently completed her veterinary studies at the local university and had just gotten her career dream job of working at a clinic here in the city. I let myself in the door and was greeted by her large male cat, Tom, whose black silky fur shined in the dim lights of the apartment. Tom gave me her customary meow in greeting and nearly tripped me as I came into the apartment. I probably should have made sure he had food and water, but decided against it as I was just so excited to try out the headset. I set my bag down on the kitchen table and heard my cell phone chirp loudly from my back pocket.
Hey babe, I'm gonna be home in just a little while. Got tied up at the clinic with Mr. Bodrax's dogs again.
No problem. Guess what? I got a VR headset from the estate sale I was telling you about. I'm gonna give it a try.
Wait for me, I want to try it out too.
Was her reply. But I didn't wait for her. See, Vanessa and I actually met at a gaming store 5 years ago. We had bumped into each other and began talking. Me teasing her about buying the new city building sim game, she looked at my own purchase, Roaring Mountain 5, and laughed, saying that she couldn't stand horror games. We talked so much that we were the only people left in the store, and the clerks had to force us out as they were closing. Looking back on those days, I wish I had valued the time that we had together more. I took the black wrapping paper off the box and opened its contents. The barely used headset sat deep into the confines of the box. The only paperwork inside sat on top. Thank you for your purchase. Enjoy your complimentary software included. Were the only words that the folded white sheet of paper. I took the headset out of the box, noticing that there were long scratches on the side of the headset, which must have been why the price was so good on the unit. Even if I couldn't sell this in the store, this was still a steal at the price I got it for. I took the unit out and plugged it into the computer in our bedroom, and sat down in the computer chair while drivers installed. After a few moments of impatiently waiting, the installation was done, and I clicked the executable file, playme.exe, on the install file. My folder whirled loudly, and the internal fans of the computer cut on. My computer screen cut away as the headset software loaded up. Out of curiosity, I alt-tabbed and closed the program, and tried to load up a few of the dozen or so other VR-compatible games that I had downloaded on my computer. I remembered frowning as each and every one of them crashed, telling me the headset wasn't compatible with the games. Determined not to be disappointed, fearing that I had bought a VR headset that wasn't going to work with any other games, I clicked on the program and put my headset on my head. I was in what looked like an underground room, a basement of some sort. There were no windows, and the room was illuminated by a single light bulb dangling from the ceiling, its yellow light doing little to illuminate the vast room I was in. I looked around trying to find a door of some sort, but couldn't find one. The only object that looked interactable was a single floor-length mirror set in the center of the concrete wall across from me. I was impressed with the graphics of the game, as everything seemed nearly photorealistically detailed. I tried to press escape on my keyboard to bring up the menu of the game so I could check the graphics settings and see what was under the hood, but nothing happened. The only audio in the game was the sounds of my loud footsteps reverberating against the walls of the concrete room. I approached the mirror from an angle and was surprised to find a figure standing in it when I looked at the mirror straight on. The figure in the mirror was a young red-headed man wearing blue jeans and a dark shirt. I couldn't look down to see my body in the game, so I couldn't tell if this was supposed to be a reflection of my character in the mirror or something else. Since this seemed to be the only thing that the game wanted me to do, I approached the mirror to get a better look at the man. He didn't move, which threw me off, since he was supposed to be a reflection of myself in-game character. He should have been matching my movements in a reflection. He wasn't at all, just staring back at me through the mirror. But he had a horrible smile, stretched beyond the bounds of a normal human mirth and laughter. And I felt the twingles of fear in my chest as the game began to get good. The man's grin never left his face as I got closer to the mirror. I turned my head, breaking the stare down to the right to see if I had missed any details in the environment. Finding none, I turned back to the mirror and saw a man walking away from me. Except the environment in the mirrored reflection was different. Instead of him being in the same concrete room I was in, he was walking down a hallway in a home now. Just before he turned the corner of the hallway, he turned his head so I could see his inhuman grin once again, and he disappeared beyond sight. Years of playing video games have taught me that he wanted me to follow him, so I did. I walked into the mirror and found myself transported into a different location. I was in the same hallway, except now I could hear the faint crackle of static from somewhere else in the environment. This was clearly someone's home, as the walls were framed with pictures of the red-headed man and a woman. One picture had them on a beach, the other in a park, and the rest had similar settings. I turned to look behind me and at the mirror I had came from, but it was cracked and a multi-wide of spiderwebs. I walked over to the mirror and tried to enter it, but I could no longer interact and pass through it like I had before. Still thinking this was the charm of this game, which was quickly becoming a horror game of sorts, I turned around and explored the hallway. I passed more pictures of the red-headed man and the woman, and attempted to enter a few of the doors, but was unable to, triggering a loud audio cue of a doorknob rattling. I moved down the hallway, my footsteps powdering gladly on the wooden floor, and the sound of the static began to get louder. I turned the corner, expecting to see the red-headed man again, but I discovered I was in a living room, with a large television and sectional couch in the center of the room. I didn't see another mirror signaling the end of this level, but discovered the source of the static noise, a computer monitor, set on a simple black desk on the right side of the room, emitted the static noise I had been hearing, and the black and white snow screen of the monitor painted the room with its white glow. On the desk was a VR headset, and upon further inspection seemed to be the same model of the one I had purchased and was currently using, with a note next to it with the words, "Play me," scrawled sloppy cursive handwriting. Not seeing any other alternative, I clicked on the headset, interacting with it, and my character lurked down into the computer chair and put the headset on. The realistic graphics and blur of the motion made my stomach somewhat queasy, which wasn't an uncommon effect of someone playing VR games for me. The screen went black momentarily, and when the game came back on, I found myself once again at the beginning of the level, in the same hallway. I turned around and saw that the mirror was still broken, which meant I had some other objective to complete here. I looked at the pictures on the walls as I walked down the hallway, and stopped to inspect one when I noticed the images had changed. There was a thin woman wearing medical scrubs, accompanied by a shorter man with blonde hair. The images were blurry, which I attributed to the limitations of the VR headset. I could have sworn that the pictures were of me and Vanessa. I turned around, and I knew that I was right. I recognized us in the center of one of the photos. We were smiling at the camera, our clothes sweaty and dirty. We had taken this one on a backpacking trip to the Grand Canyon a few years ago, on our anniversary. I remember thinking then that something was wrong, but I rationalized it, thinking the game must have intelligently scanned some of the images I had saved from that trip onto my hard drive to further immerse me in the world. I walked back down the hallway, turned the corner, and saw that I wasn't alone in the living room. There was a man who had my proportions and features, sitting in the computer desk. I could see some blonde hair poking out through the VR headset, and I knew that this was a virtual representation of the real me. From the real world, again, thinking this was just the game. I was impressed, as the technical wizardry of the game, and endeavored to check out any other games the devs had worked on when I was finished. This time, there wasn't any static in the computer monitor. The screen was completely black. I approached the sitting figure and moved to interact with him. As I had done so previously, I clicked on the headset and watched as I sat down, occupying the same space as the sitting virtual version of me. Suddenly, my VR screen went black, and I wondered if the game had crashed. I suddenly jumped as the red-headed man filled the screen. The only sound I heard was his long, deep breaths. Now that I was closer, I could get a better look at him. The red-headed man stopped smiling that cold, joyless smile of his, and I wish he hadn't. He opened his mouth wide, wider than possible, and I could see the white flash of rows of wickedly sharp teeth from his mouth. I heard the audible pop of his jaw dislocating itself as his mouth contorted and opened further, until it had reached impossible proportions. The red-headed man's mouth was now an impossibly stretched maw, a chasm of sharp teeth, and he took a step closer towards me, his jaw closing in on my screen. It was at that point that I had had enough and had decided that the game was too realistic and too scary, but none of the prompts on the keyboard responded. As the red-headed man got closer to me, I began to panic and attempted to remove the headset, but found that it was shut impossibly tight on my head. I had to dig my nails painfully under the side of my head to remove it, finally leaving several trails of blood in the process. When I took the headset off, the game had crashed and I found myself looking at a familiar side of my computer desktop, completely disturbed at the nature of the headset and the game. I rushed back to my messenger bag on the kitchen table and I emptied it. The contents of it on the table, an act that startled Tom and sent him running, desperately trying to find the folder that contained all of the information on the estate. I searched through all the papers in my bag and couldn't find them, and remembered that I had left them in a folder at the office in my antique store. I rushed out to my car, barely remembering Vanessa, and arrived shortly at the store. I turned off the security system and walked into my office, where I found the estate folder sitting on my desk. I opened the folder and was consumed with horror as I recognized the picture clipped to the top left papers. It was a red-headed man, smiling up at me with pearly white teeth. I glanced at his personal information and saw that a phone number was listed under his contact information. I frantically dialed the number, and was met with a cold electronic voice that told me that the line had been disconnected. Numb from shock, I grabbed the folder and headed out to my car, and made the trip back to my apartment. When I arrived at my apartment building, I knew something was wrong. Several New Orleans police officers had the entrance to the building roped off with a crime scene tape, and several onlookers were standing behind the barriers, talking excitedly about what was going on. I approached one of the officers at the front entrance, and he told me that the building was closed off, except to through traffic due to an ongoing investigation. He wouldn't tell me what had happened, except that a neighbor had called about screams coming from one of the apartments, but let me pass when I told him I lived in the building. When the elevator doors opened up onto my floor, I felt a chill going down my spine. As more police officers were coming outside of my apartment, speaking with hushed tones, they let me through after I told them I lived there. I demanded answers, and got none in return, but their pale faces clued me in on what I was about to see. I saw Vanessa's black purse, a gift from me, sitting on the kitchen table, and readied myself for what I was about to see in the bedroom. A large detective, busy taking photographs, obscured most of my view of the bedroom, but I could see the VR headset on my computer desk where I had left it. The entire room was splattered with blood. The walls and bed were covered, and blood dripped down from the ceiling. I smelled the coppery fluid and felt the bile rising in the back of my throat. I quickly rushed to the hallway bathroom and threw up the contents of my stomach all over the inside of the bowl. Vanessa is gone, and the VR headset is in the possession of the police, who tell me it's evidence in the investigation. There have been no leads in her murder, and the police have told me they're baffled by the case. They can't figure out what happened to her, or where her body went. It's been 2 weeks since her death, and I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of static coming from my computer monitor, which was covered in that familiar black and white snow screen. I'm writing this now to tell all of you about what happened to me, in the hopes that maybe you've experienced something similar and can tell me what's going on. I'm trying to look into the red-headed man's death and see if I can figure out what happened to him. In the meantime, if you happen upon a deal of a lifetime like I had, think of my story and consider passing it up. Sometimes things that seem too good to be true really are.